Welcome or welcome back, this is Phaedra and spring has sprung. Blossom trees are in full force right now. They only last about 1 week of every year and I just try to make the most of it. The farm is bursting into colour, it's greening up. You can see the growing space on the left there is ready to be planted into and I cannot wait. In this video I'm going to show you how I sow seeds and how I get it done really quick and really easily. And I'm going to start preparing things to plant out in the next few weeks. So there's a couple of things we need. We need soil. I'll talk about that. You need some sort of tray. I use newspaper to line the bottom of the tray so the soil doesn't fall through. And some sort of a stick. I usually just find a stick. And then scissors, tape, and a texter. It's actually quite nice in here, it's not too bad. Let's get into it. Next, I just go through and I fill all the trays up with the potting soil, and I'll show you what soil I'm using. I've been using this Osmocote seed and seed and cutting mix because it's got a really nice texture. Like it's actually beautiful. The soil stays moist, so it's a little bit more forgiving if I have missed the schedule for watering, especially in this hot house because it gets so hot in here. If I am running a little bit late, it's way more forgiving. I'm less likely to lose my crop of seedlings. So we do set timers though. So we'll have a morning timer and an afternoon timer. And then if we won't have anything in here once it gets too hot, but we'll have, open the doors and water in the morning, and then sort of mid-afternoon I want to do another water and then close the doors. It gets to the point where it doesn't matter if we don't close the doors though. So anyway, that's a little tip. If you're risking it and growing in a hot house and the weather's warming up, get your timers so you don't come out here and you've just fried everything. So I'm just going to fill up all these trays. I just do them all at once, level them out, and then I'll go through the next step. And I probably should say too, if you're worried about dust from the soil, put a mask on. I normally would, but the soil's actually very moist today, and I don't have very much to work with. Next, what I do is I'll grab my seeds that I'm using and I just lay them on the trays. So I kind of work out what I've got and what's going sort of in. I'm not going to do the zinnias yet. I'm going to do those a little bit later in the season once I know for sure there's no more frost because I can't risk them. So let's just go through. So the nasturtiums, the asteris, artichokes. Pride of Madeira, I'll probably double tray this. Hollyhocks, red hot pokers, the violas. I might actually just direct sow those. The lawn chamomile, and then the Swiss giants and the violas. So then I've sort of sorted out where my plants are going. Usually when I was, flower farming for the florist business, I would need about 4 trays per row. So I would have, like one lot of seeds and then 4 rows, then a lot of seeds and then 4 rows. So I knew that those 4 trays were going to be all the same thing. So then I write down the labels and I put them all in the front. This season, because I'm doing things a little bit differently, I'm not growing such huge amounts of any one flower. Well, maybe cosmos and marigolds. So I'm kind of doubling up in the trays because I use quite big trays. The lawn chamomile, I do want a lot of that. So it's got its own tray. The violas and the Swiss Giants, I'm actually going to have to take them out of the hothouse. They're not going to germinate in here. It's going to be too hot. They want 17 to 21 degrees and it's going to be too hot for them in here to get them going. Hollyhocks can all be in one tray. It doesn't matter if they get mixed up a bit. Pride of Madeira, I don't really need a full tray of that. I might double that up with the red hot pokers, put both, do 2 trays. Artichokes can just have a side each. Liastris, I probably don't need a whole tray of Liastris either, so I might double that up with something else. Foxgloves, I am going to do a full tray of that. And then nasturtiums, they actually do really well direct sowing, but I'm going to get a few going so they're safe from the frost. And I will just sprinkle some seeds around of those as well. So this is how I then go about it. I will now go and label everything with what I've got in the trays. If I'm doing 2 separate things, so I've got the artichoke green globe and the artichoke purple of Romagna, I don't know. So I'll put one label on the front of this tray and the other label on the back. So we sort of know it's half and half. And sometimes I'll leave a bit of a wider gap down the middle. So I've got my 2. And that's how I'll label things. With the nasturtiums, I'm not too fussed on the colours of where they go. Where are they? Where are my nasturtiums? But what I might do is turn it sideways and I'll just put the labels on here and just put one on the front for nasturtiums. So usually with these little bits and pieces, I wouldn't use these big trays because I'd actually be I would have this entire hothouse just lined with trays. Every bit of space would be used up. I would have smaller trays for these bits and pieces. But like I said, I'm doing things a little bit differently this season. And this is just what I'm used to, so it's easy. I also want to do a couple of trays of the red dahlias so I can start taking cuttings and get them growing earlier because that's my other Valentine's Day flower. I want to have the Celosia coxcomb and the red dahlias. They're going to be my main things. And then I'll get some green, hoping that the basil could potentially be ready by nice and ready to pick in February. And then some other little bits and pieces, which will take a lot of pressure off buying flowers. So I'm going to go through, write these labels, and then we'll be back for the next step. Now that we've got all the trays labelled, what I'll go through now is just plant out all the seeds, and I basically just follow where I've got the labels, that's where things go. And I wish I had something more professional to show you, but I use a stick and I'll show you how I get these seeds in. The only thing is with whatever you're planting, you need to just check what the seed depth, like the sowing depth is. If you can't find that on a packet, like if it doesn't say, some companies have the information on the packet, some don't. If you can't find it, it's usually 2 to 3 times the width of the seed. I'm fairly lax with it. Like I just kind of get the seeds in and I've never had too much trouble with it. As soon as you water it in, that seed depth changes anyway because the soil compacts. So I probably go a little bit deeper than usual. If the seed depth says 0 millimeters or 1 millimeter, that generally means it's like the lightest covering, and some seeds have no covering at all. If it says 0, you don't cover the seeds. For me, that's probably the main information. Does this seed need light to germinate or does it need darkness to germinate? So that's the main thing. Are we covering that seed or are we exposing it to the sunlight? So I'm just going to go through now, get everything in these seed trays, and then we'll water in. So this is my stick. This is what I use it for. I make the little areas for the seeds to go. And with these foxgloves, they actually are one of the seeds that needs light to germinate. So they're just getting put into these little channels and I'm not covering them up. So I just go through, especially with something like this, it's such tiny, tiny seed. I'll show you. Tiniest seed. I will always empty it out. I should have done it up this end because that's where they're going, over the space where it's being planted. And then basically, because that seed is so small, I will just sprinkle it in. And I'll do it quite heavily because I'll thin it later. So that's that one done. This seed, I'm just going to go chuck that out on the garden. I just sprinkled that in there. Sometimes when I've got seed, like heaps of seed, rather than stick it back in the container, I just chuck it somewhere and we'll see what grows. So then I'll just go through each variety and do the same thing. But tiny, tiny seed like foxglove seed, you know, I don't mess around. I just sprinkle it in. See how I'm just making sure I'm holding it over where I'm going to plant it. So if it drops, it's in the right spot. Okay, and that's it. So just remember, we're not patting it back down. This one's just being left because it needs light to germinate. And then what I do is I just clean up my area, get rid of the empty packets. They go to the bin and I pack these away. Now with these nasturtiums, they actually need quite a deep seed depth. Now with these bigger ones, sometimes I will press them in. Go through and do that. And then cover. I'm going to go through, finish the rest of these off now, and then we will meet back when I'm done. So there you have it. I've got all of those seeds in. So I hope this helped. I hope you've learned a little something about our plan for this year, this season, as well as how we go about planting our seeds. It saves a lot of money planting seeds rather than buying plugs. Anyways, I hope this helped and I'll see you in the next video.